and welcome to Jurassic Reviews. Today we'll be taking a look at another Godzilla 1962 figure, this time the SH MonsterArts version. I have a decent amount of SH MonsterArts figures, though all of them are different versions of Godzilla. I missed out on King Ghidorah, Mecha King Ghidorah, and Biollante. It's not that I didn't want them, it was just sort of bad timing for me because not too long after I got my first MonsterArts figures, I started collecting X+, which has been my main focus for Godzilla collecting. I do like SH MonsterArts figures though, and I plan on getting all the King of the Monsters figures. I'll be doing reviews on those, and I really can't wait for that 2019 King Ghidorah figure. Anyway, back to today's figure, the SH MonsterArts Godzilla 1962. This figure was just recently released, though Amazon took forever to send me mine. I feel like a lot of people have had this one for over a month now. If you watched my previous video on NECA's Godzilla 1962, you might remember I was eager to compare these two, so I might be doing that a little bit throughout this video. It's really hard not to. They are from two competing companies and they happen to release the same version of Godzilla at the same time, though with drastically different price ranges. I will say that before the NECA 1962 Godzilla, I never thought any of NECA's were at quite the same level as the MonsterArts figures. I'm not saying that NECA's were bad, they have been mostly fantastic for their price, but in terms of suit accuracy and articulation, the MonsterArts versions always seem to be a step above them. As we take a look at the 62 and compare it to the NECA's, you'll see the differences in quality have become much harder to distinguish. Also, just want to say that MonsterArts figures are not exactly perfect either. I've had plenty of quality control issues with mine. First, let's take a look at the box for this 62 Godzilla. Here's the front, pretty much the standard for an SH MonsterArts figure nowadays. Here's the side of the box. And here's the back of the box that includes a bunch of different poses for the figure. Onto the figure itself. It stands about 6 inches tall and is 11 inches long. About the average size for a MonsterArts figure. Here's a quick size comparison with a few other Godzillas from this line. Before we continue, I want to mention that this figure does include an atomic breath accessory, a piece that is the exact same as the one that came with the 1964 Emergence Godzilla. Unlike the NECA version, this effect piece requires a stand to hold it up, then it's just a matter of lining it up correctly in Godzilla's mouth. This figure is almost entirely charcoal gray, with a little bit of brown. It's actually a pretty flat paint job compared to NECA's. It's really just that color throughout it. It feels just a little disappointing. I mean, it still works, but I feel like it's just missing something. The dorsal spines are a little bit better and closer to NECA's version. I love the bumpy texture covering most of the spines. Just looks really nice and detailed, but I do have one bad spot on mine. It looks like some paint that shouldn't be there. Oddly, the finger and toenails are unpainted. There might be a slight bit of brown in there, but for the most part they're the same charcoal color found throughout the rest of the figure. The fingernails and toenails were dark in the film, but I don't think they were this dark. I think you could actually see a difference between the nails and the rest of the body. As I mentioned in my NECA review, NECA's version had these painted, though it was kind of the opposite problem there. I felt they were too bright. Just an odd decision paint-wise, would have liked a little more there. Moving on to the head, you'll find it has orangish looking eyes. I think both of the pupils of mine are lined up correctly, though it's hard to tell with the translucent layer that they have over them. The eyes look great from the side angles, but from the front the additional lens-like layer over them kind of distorts the direction of the pupils a little. But just looking at them from the sides, I think I got a good one in terms of them being in the right place. A lot of people have problems with the pupils on these figures being in the wrong spots, causing the figure to look really derpy. Looking at some of my others, I actually think I've gotten really lucky at avoiding this problem. Moving to the inside of the mouth, the teeth are painted white and it has a dark pinkish tongue with some black paint mixed in. Unfortunately, the teeth on mine are just a little bit messy on the bottom row. They're really small though, so it's hard to notice. An area where I feel this figure really excels is the sculpt itself. I think this sculpt really nails the look of the suit in the film. I think I mentioned in my review of the NECA that I felt the back was off, and this is what I was trying to describe. There's a bit of a curve as the shoulders transition to the neck. This figure perfectly captures that. The spines, legs, and arms all look great. The head also looks spot on, though the eyes make it a little off when viewing from the front. Just overall a solid job on this sculpt. It's just a shame that the paint is not up to the same quality. Moving on to the articulation. It has a good amount. It's pretty much what we've come to expect from SH MonsterArts figures. The head is on a ball joint and can turn a decent amount, just don't turn it too much or the head will pop off. I will say the lower neck joint on mine is really tight. I can't get it to move much at the moment. Back on the head, the jaw can open and it can even move the tongue. I will say this jaw articulation is vastly superior to the NECA's. It just looks a lot better from side angles. It just looks more natural looking. The torso is another area where it's a little more movable than the NECA. This one can actually look down a little bit. Their arms have a good amount of movement and the hand is actually on a ball joint. Unfortunately, there's not an additional joint for the fingers. You're stuck with them in this open position. The legs have a good amount of movement as well. The thighs, well, at least one side on mine, move a great amount more than the NECA version. There's still some tight joints on mine, but I think they'll get better over time. The tail is really posable. Like other MonsterArts figures, the tail is loaded with ball joints. The NECA 62 has ball joints too, but this has a great deal more, allowing you to get it into a precise position. Before I move on to my final thoughts, I'm just going to show a quick comparison with the NECA. Both are great figures, it's just gotten much harder this time around to pick an obvious winner between them. A bad sign for their MonsterArts version, which retails for over $70 more. It'll be interesting to see what Bandai does with this line going forward. I think they really need to step it up a little to distance themselves from what NECA is providing. For the price, it should excel in all areas, not just a few. For a rating out of 10, I give this figure an 8 out of 10. The sculpt is amazing, and it captures the likeness of the suit better than the NECA, which wasn't a slouch in this area to begin with. It also has good articulation, a little bit better than the NECA's. Where it loses a bit for me is in the paint job. It just does not feel it's where it should be. It's just a bit disappointing. Then there's the price. This one retails for over $100. It's just so hard to recommend this one when the NECA is sitting below $30. They are both great, but it's closer than it should be this time around. Hats off to NECA. And that does it for my review of the SH MonsterArts Godzilla 1962. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe. I think I'll be doing some X Plus reviews next, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching and see you next time.